Hello everyone, my name is Hanif Mohammed, CEO here at Asia Institute of Design. Welcome to the series of webinar hosted by AID. We've been covering varied subjects ranging from AI, ML, animation, gaming. We have more coming, including soon on VFX. Some ground rules before we begin. Kindly use the chat box to ask any question to the speaker. The speaker would respond at his convenience. By any chance, but any time you lose your line drops, you can always come back with the same link which has been provided. For whatever reason, if you're not able to come back, this is live streamed on YouTube, or we are recording the session, and we will also mail you the recorded session. For people who don't know who we are a progressive higher education institution since 2008, offering undergraduate and professional diplomas in art, design, and tech now. We started as the first dedicated gaming institute of India. We've been churning out professionals for the ABDC and design industry. Our alumni have been contributing to leading blockbuster movies, the part of Oscar-winning teams like Jungle Book. Also credits in many other titles like the Godzillas or the Avengers of the world. Games students have been contributing towards GTA 5, which is the biggest game so far because it grossed $1 billion in just 3 days, and also credits in many other games like the Red Dead Redemption, Call of Duty, and so on. Students working in across the world. We have students in Canada, Finland, Singapore, Malaysia, UK, etc. Our students come from across India. We have international students. We have students from Korea, Japan, Russia, Netherlands, and many more. AID art faculty programs are in gaming, animation. We are introducing VFX programs soon. Design faculty offers programs in communication design, UI, UX, and spatial design has been introduced this year. Tech faculty offers programs in ML and AI. We have been introducing more programs in emerging technologies this year as well. AID is going online. Our first online batch will be starting in July. We are a blend between industry and academia. Most of our faculties, all the faculties comes with industry experience. They must have at least worked on two AAA title games, or they've contributed, and they come from experience in DreamWorks, Lakshya Digital, Eccentrics, and so on. You need any further information, you can always look into www.aginstituteofdesign.in, or you can follow us on our social media handles as well. Yeah, I have the pleasure of introducing today's speaker, Devraj Vadra. He's an industrial designer, consultant for human-centered designs. He has a master degree holder from National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad. Comes with 7+ years of dedicated, extensive work experience in the design industry. He's been part of variety of projects across domains, ranging from healthcare devices to consumer products. Majority of his work has been in the user experience and industrial design domain. He's worked with studios in India and abroad, including car manufacturers like the Audi. After learning from how design works in larger organization, he incorporated machine design consultancy, design products across domains, furniture, medical devices, apps, consumer electronics, and so forth. He's been mentored in IIT, Intel, Tinker Labs, also done teams in for designathon at ADI, that is the Association of Designers of India. So that's a brief. Just I leave it to Devraj Vadra to take it from here. Hope you enjoy the session. Over to Devraj.
So welcome everyone. So I like to call this presentation Enter, Learn, Grow and Repeat. This is basically what I have been doing through different phases of my life as a designer in the last 7 to 8 years. And I'm a human interaction and a human experience designer. And I'd just like to share my journey with you. So what do I do exactly? This is an interesting question I had to come up with an answer for, especially for explaining to somebody who has no idea of what industrial design or design as a profession is, especially to my distant relatives who initially thought I was a fashion designer because that's what they have seen. And some of them asked me if I do art. I realized they are not wrong actually. But then I like to define myself as someone who creates and helps implement new ideas to enhance the way people do things. It could be anything, right? It's a very generic statement, but it's also, I guess, true because as a designer, this is what you do. And the media you choose, the medium you choose actually creates the various domains and professions. If you do something physical, you are an industrial designer. If you design visuals, you're a visual communicator, and so on. So the broad agenda of what we will discuss here is 4 topics. One is how it all began for me, how I got into design, the opportunities and realizations I had through design schooling and my initial work experience. And then, of course, starting up my own consultation with my partner and best friend, and which led to a solid crash course in the business of design. So we had clients. So, and after that, the last point would be 3 basic principles and my favorite principles, which are like takeaways, which I practice every day and would welcome all of you to think about. Before all that, I like to ask you if you have ever thought of these, if these have ever hit you in your mind that, when you see a path across a garden, when people just walk across, even though there is another path here. And maybe sometimes you feel like covering up all the unnecessary buttons in your remote. And this definitely, I'm sure all of you have experienced everywhere. You still have to spend a microsecond thinking whether to push or pull, and it's still there. So if you can't help but wonder about these things, you are a design thinker, you are a designer. And if you're constantly finding scope for improvement in everything around you, whether it's the chair you're sitting on, whether it's the light you are using, whether it's the pen you're using, whether it's a poster, you are definitely a design inclined person. What's the spectrum of design? When you say where is design, you see products and ads of things which claim to be designer product. I like to argue that everything is in a way designed. It is everywhere, just that it is in collaboration with various other forms of design. So it's in a way of looking at things and a process of improvement. Design is there for improvement. There's no other reason for design to exist. These are things which inspire me, and I would ask if any of you find difficulty in identifying what these products are. We all know, even by looking at some parts of an object, that's how we connect to certain objects, right? Car enthusiasts might look at tail light and identify that's a car from 100 feet away. When you look at the edge of a laptop, there's a MacBook, and so on. But then these are, I would say, on the higher spectrum of design and industrial design. There are other things around us which we don't really associate directly to design when you use the word. Things like the can. This is brilliant. This is age old, but this is a fantastic piece of engineering and design come together. This is made of 3 to 4 parts. And have you ever imagined that the right amount of force is required to open a can of soda, and it doesn't burst without that force, and it's just a laser cut. So this is brilliant. The cricket ball is also designed. It's designed to be manufactured easily. It's designed to function during the game, where you polish one side and you leave one side rough for the ball to swing in the air. All this is simple examples of design. In fact, ask yourself why the manhole is round. The quick answer is that it doesn't fall inside the manhole itself. So these are things which have design deep ingrained in them. They have evolved to a level that you are not improving it anymore. You don't see the cricket ball changing. So this is the spectrum of design. This is how far it is spread. 2 questions which I had to ask myself, and I also ask myself sometimes now: is engineering and design the same? And if how are art and design related? Um, I would like to say that engineering and design they go hand in hand. They are partners, and in fact, art and design also are friends. Sometimes, most of the times, the design is actually intended for a particular function or a particular end result or an end user to solve a problem. Art mostly is when an artist or a designer wants to express himself using a media. If you are creating a sculpture, you're not always trying to solve a problem or trying to have a particular audience in mind. Like, only these kind of people will walk through my museum and look at it. It's not that simple. Art is mostly expression, design is problem solving. But then sometimes things combine. If I ask you to look at these four professions, carpenter, a gardener, a software engineer, and a surgeon, would you call them designers? Please feel free to answer. I honestly want to answer at this point, just to check if I'm getting through. Great. I'm getting a vast range of answers. Some of them say carpenter is a designer. Everyone except the surgeon is a designer. So this is interesting because the moment I write this next to them, I would call a carpenter a furniture designer, a gardener a landscape designer, a software engineer a UI UX designer who designs your apps and websites. Most of the modern devices in medicine are designed by surgeons and other doctors. So he's a medtech designer. So this is how I'd like to welcome you to think that the boundaries between what we think about professions and what a designer does is actually very thin. How I got into design. So this is a Shakespearean line which I find very apt based on my Bachelor of Engineering. So to be or not to be, is that the question? That was really true at that point of time. When I finished my schooling, the decision was between medicine, law, or engineering. So I chose engineering for a certain inclination I had towards physical products, which I could see, and mechanisms. These things interested me, especially mechanical engineering. So I got into that. I was scared of medicine, and law was something which was very complex for me at that point of time. I did question myself about architecture, but then I felt engineering was a safer option at that point of time due to various reasons. But that's history. So how I got into design was during engineering. We had a blast doing a multiple things. Besides the formal education of mechanical engineering, whenever we could find time, me and my friends would actually try and pick up new software, try and design homes with whatever knowledge we thought was in architecture. We design different products. We try to solve simple problems around us in our own way. And we even designed hoodies for our group of friends, which became popular, and we sold around 200 hoodies, and we actually used that to go to Kerala. But then, most of all, the most important reason for me to join design was all this fun that we had, and my best friend, and who was my partner later in the future. These are things we actually looked up. When you want to go into something new, which none of your family members is doing, who do you ask? You ask yourself, and you try to do some research on your own. We literally, I remember typing, what does a designer do? Is there a job? Is there a salary in Google? And we came across amazing people. Dieter Rams, if you know him, he's he's someone really, really big in design, in industrial design. His principles, his 10 principles of good design are still revered, and a lot of products of Apple are influenced by that. In fact, the ex-lead designer of Apple used to follow his footsteps, and Dieter Rams is someone I personally follow. And Dyson and IDEO, these are great. These are mega big companies which influence the map of design in the world. And Apple, of course, is a everyday household name now. So all these things actually opened up a new world to us, and I wrote exams and we got through NID Ahmedabad in 2011. But then taking a step back, um, I just like to talk about how product design is actually referred to differently in different streams. If you are at Google, their software might also be referred to as product. In fact, a lot of coders use architecture as a form to describe how their code is structured. So these are generic terms of science, and that's why it's fair that you call a physical or a digital product a product. But broadly, industrial design is what you call hardcore physical products and hardware you make for mass production. And visual design or digital communication is, we have websites and apps and softwares and games come under that, even movies. So even in college, we had two different streams of industrial design and visual communication. So I am getting a few questions in the chat. I'm keeping track of some of the questions, but yes, we will keep a good amount of time at the back at the end for question and answer, if that is fine with all of you. Okay, so with my mechanical engineering background, when I went into my post graduation in design, I chose furniture design as my formal training, and I could immediately see a lot of possibilities of using my technical background and using my furniture knowledge to create different things. In addition to that, it was a whole new world for me. Everybody was like me. They always talked and obsessed about smallest things, which you usually wouldn't discuss with your family, right? We would obsess about why a toothpick is the way it is. Why is a badminton racket like that? It's quite funny, actually. Everybody was a designer around me. It was amazing, and I felt a belonging when I entered the design school. And through that, there was an opportunity to get an international exposure. They had an Erasmus exchange program where one student from each of the four departments, product design, furniture design, transportation design, and graphic design, was sent to Germany, to Hanover. And we studied for 6 months there for an exchange. The college was FHH, Fachhochschule Hanover, and now the exchange program is with HTW Berlin, but some of the faculty is the same. And next would be how I got placed and the jobs I did, and moving on to startup. So the first was my exchange, right? So during the exchange, I had a new kind of exposure where the college which we were working with, they had a system where you could choose 3-4 topics with different credit points. Some were larger projects, some were smaller projects, across 6 months. So it's up to you how you finish those tasks across 6 months. So you could dedicate your time accordingly. NID Ahmedabad was a little different. We had modules where there was a set amount of time for a particular course depending on the complexity of the course. So that was new for me, and the largest project is what I'll talk about. So this is for the German Railways. Deutsche Bahn, or DB, is their railway system, and the project was to design for future of railway interiors and design for Germany. It was roughly 2 to 3 months. So that context I actually translated into, for myself, I translated into within railway interiors, I will work with, coming up with new material science and ergonomics for the future, not the whole of the KBIT, for example. And also design for Germany, I kind of filtered it into design for German culture, because, when you design for Germany, it could also mean mass production or, other things. But I chose to design for German culture. Using these two topics, I did a lot of white paper research. There are a lot of free white paper research available from really big furniture design companies like Herman Miller. These are amazing pieces of paper which you can read, and you can get to know details of how the body works in a moving environment, how your back works, where is the strain, where is the stress. All these technical things I could really connect to because of my engineering background. I enjoyed it because of that, but it also gave me new perspective towards design. And, how much engineering is involved in design, because your ideas need to be manufacturable so that people can actually use it. So initial studies of how I can improve the way the seat, reclines, things like that. I studied how I can remove foam altogether and use plastics, and the way plastics bend to create that cushioning effect. And these are very basic concepts. Of course, we couldn't have time to actually prototype or test these out physically, but there was enough proof with the kind of design and material to say this works. And then I went ahead and designed the single, monocoque structure where there are two seats on either side to minimize production. And also, one small point I would like to discuss here is, you see this silver handle here. It's basically a grab handle for you, but also for someone to keep something on it. At the same time, this arc-shaped seats near the head is because the person sitting in the back, even when you recline, cannot see the person in the front. That's the kind of culture over there. Privacy is very important. So these type of things were to be integrated. And after my third semester, the last project was the final year diploma project. This was again with a company called Isringhausen. They started very early when they wanted to make springs. They just made bicycle springs, and now they are a massive OEM in Germany, supplying bus and truck seats to various companies. And so ISRI is short for Isringhausen. This was around 6 months of project. So the brief given to me was they wanted an aesthetic change of their intracity seats called the Civic. But then I felt that was not enough for a diploma project, and I had enough time. So I didn't want the project to be limited to styling. And I felt I could use their technology and learning to do something functional, or maybe even create a patent. So I changed the brief into design an entire modular system of seating or a family of seats. Functional full-scale prototype was really important for me. I had never done a full-scale, mechanical prototype, and the patent was a dream. And one sec, I'll just check if someone has chatted something. Great. Yes, so there are certain questions which Yash, Shreya have posted. We will try to get to these questions towards the end, so that we can, all of us can, have a interactive Q&A. So as you see on the left, top left, these were the seats they had. This was the intracity seating. So I did a lot of ergonomic studies of how you can use each part of the seat properly. If each part can be used in different ways, that's added benefit. I had to do physical models and test how ideal grips are there. And then midway, I realized my hands are small compared to German hands. Then I had to ask some of my colleagues to help me out. So anthropometry and studying people came into the picture because I was designing for that community. And also the most popular kind of audiences for the buses, is it older people or is it school children? So these kind of things I had to study. There were certain kind of knowledge which I had to get from the company as to what are the most comfortable manufacturing processes they have. Are there any standards I can follow so that we don't rework things and reinvent the wheel and things like that. I did almost 10 iterations before I could arrive at something new. And it usually happens when you spend enough time trying to do something better and do something different. At the end of it all, your collective experience actually pushes out something different. It is an epiphany moment which happens. So we came up with a single loop system, wherein it acts like a cushioning system when the truck is, or the bus is moving in the seats. So what happens? You can't just put a stationary seat in a moving object. That was the theory. If you put your office chair in the bus, you basically will get to sit comfortably till an extent, because when the bus turns, there are forces which act on your body. So these are things which we considered during designing this. So in this concept, which you see, that when the bus has different movements, like let's say it brakes, the lower part of the loop will push your lower back. And similarly, when it turns left or turn right, the left and right loops press against your side so that it gives you support. So these kind of technical details were really interesting. Actually, it happened to us the last 2 months of the project, and the engineering team really helped me to create the product. As you see, we were lucky to interact with the bus and train consortium, and they gave their feedback. We actually tested this part only. Only the loop was functional. The rest of the seat was, of course, aesthetic only. It was a prototype, and the company gave me complete liberty. Use the facilities, do whatever you want. There is a budget, and you have a responsibility. So that kind of put a little bit of pressure on me, but also made me learn and grow. That this company trusts you with their product. They already gave a deadline of December when I joined in the first 2 months, and I had the deadline already. The invitations were set, so I had to finish the product at that time. There was no looking back, which also gave me an idea of when you have a deadline, you have to execute. You cannot go on improving and improvising on a product, because given enough time, you can create a spaceship. But when you have limited time and resources, you have to take decisions as a designer and push out what is best at that point of time. So this was the end result. um, the basic part of the seat is the same. As you see, for intra-city, within the city, the handles on the top are required. But for intercity, I realized that they need a headrest. That's a legal requirement, to have a headrest and a rear handle, and also seat belts. So seat belts was something which I was not designing. So this loop concept was patented, and the legs were something they got into production immediately. And so that was really exciting for me as an experience. Let me just take 2 seconds to see if there are any new. Yeah, so there are a range of questions ranging from industrial designers, how do they focus, and what's the procedure to get into a design school after BE. Uh, to become a design engineer, is it important to be good at sketching and drawing? I really like how the anonymous attendee is calling the profession a design engineer. I think that's also right. So we will come to these questions. They're quite valid. Mm, Let me ask you if you have a question specific to what you've seen so far in this presentation before I move ahead. Someone just asked what kind of softwares I use. I initially learned Rhino. Rhino is a easy to use 3D software, and apart from that, I was sketching. For detailing some of the parts, of course, the engineering team was supporting me, because they had separate surface designers, because the parts which come out of the machine need to be of a certain quality and level, which I was not trained at that point of time. They use Alias and Alias Design for prototyping and manufacturing. My surfaces were good for a presentation or a discussion or a render. Um, yes. Yeah, the patent is shared in my name, since the company is the benefactor, and they were the resource. The majority stake is theirs, but they were good enough to offer me the part ownership of the. They call it the inventorship. The budget of the project was not so much. This was very standard, budget they have for such kind of prototyping work. And the reason why prototyping and coming up with new futuristic concepts is so popular abroad is because every year, just like there's an auto show every other year, they also have a bus and truck show. So every company is supposed to show that they are innovating and they are doing something with materials or design. So that opens up great opportunities for students. That's an interesting question. So how do you compare yourself with other designers at Germany? Brilliant. So this, I would go back, and yes, I would take more questions later. So I just want to spend some time on this question, because this does take me to the previous two presentations which I did about the bus train seat, as well as this one. So as soon as me and my friends entered Germany, we saw there's a huge difference in the kind of work they do. The the designers thinking was the same. Designers back home and designers there are the same, but the process is different, at least for that college. So the process was very blue sky thinking in the beginning. And I felt the difference because I had a bachelor's degree. I already had learned a lot of restrictions and constraints in production. So I could not just go ahead and think blue sky. That is a limitation if you are already a bachelor's degree holder in a particular science, but then it could also be an advantage for you. It speeds up the process of not doing certain iterations in the first place. Certain things will not even be possible. So that was the difference. There was no difference in the quality of work, I would say. I think I was, me and my friends were quite proud of how we as a team could come up with the, quick solutions, because I think we as Indians are evolved that way. We can come up with jugaad and we can come up with 100 other solutions when there is no budget or there is no time. Especially if you're working for a very large company, the design culture there is very different. A designer sketches something and the engineering team does everything in their power to make it happen. Whereas if you're working for a small company, no matter where you are, um, the budgets and the reality of the situation pushes your limits to come up with a solution within that time and budget. So that was the experience. Moving on, I got a chance to work as an intern. After I came back, I again got a chance to work as an intern or a junior designer at Audi, Germany. So their head office is in a small town called Ingolstadt in the south of Germany. In fact, the whole town is basically Audi. And everybody you meet across in the city will be working in some form with Audi. It's like a cute Audi town. So the project was vehicle interior styling, which we mutually discussed. I had a mentor there who was basically the seating and the interior head. So again, I had to ask if I could change the project. Basically, when I realized that the amount of work required for styling will be around 2 years if I had to do the entire cabin. So we basically decided that it should be a conceptual project, very much in the future, and it was mostly towards a demo or a show car. So these could be very blue sky and conceptual. So I decided to go with a man-machine system, like how do the man and machine unite in a vehicle, and the future of mobility. So apart from this, there were other short tasks here and there, because when you're an intern, you also get to work with projects that are ongoing. They were designing a new kind of concept car where I had to design the knobs for the buttons, the window buttons, the knobs for the speaker system, also the headrest for one of their cars. So these are other side projects which go on when you're an intern, but this was my priority main project. I took around 4 months to do it. So I cannot show you the details of the process. I'm not allowed to, but the result is a very small 1:5 scale prototype. The concept was, if you see these three images here, basically man and machine are united. The seat and the vehicle are the same. The man is changing the way he is riding the vehicle. Let's say in a densely populated area or traffic, the vehicle becomes small and it gets upright. If you're cruising at 100 kilometers per hour, you can sleep because there is, automation coming up. So it was very futuristic out there. The vehicle itself is part of the seat and vice versa. And this was the broad concept of the vehicle and seat united. And I just focus on the seat. Now, the most important learning in the entire project was aesthetics for me. I learned how slight curvatures in products, you can control the way people move their eyes in a product, because as soon as, like most of you would definitely first see this particular vertical arm here. That's something a designer can control. He can control how a person will look at a product, and very small changes of sizes and dimensions put a huge difference in the aesthetics. That's the kind of language I learned from the prototype masters there. Also, this was a 3D printed prototype, which was a very rough 3D print. And after that, I spent around 3 to 4 weeks polishing it. Why 3 to 4 weeks? Because I had a very strict ex-army lab in charge. He was an artist. And then he showed me what it takes to come up with a A-class surface. And we in fact painted the prototype twice, only to know where the bumps are and the deviations are, because your naked eye cannot understand. Your fingers are better off when it comes to it. And these are small things which I realized, and it's helping me everywhere even now. And another thing was, how do you learn how to integrate a company's design language into a product? Why is this seat an Audi seat and not a BMW seat? These are things which I learned. There's a particular aesthetic language which a company follows. So when you're designing for somebody else, and if that somebody else could be a company or a person, has a particular design philosophy, you have to try and follow that brand language. An iPhone will always be different from a OnePlus on purpose, and you can identify a BMW miles away. So this is important for a designer to know. Sometimes when a designer has the liberty, he can do what he thinks is right or what he personally likes. If there's a client involved or a company involved, there's a brand language which he has to take into consideration. So there were proportions, there were standard kind of design languages which I had to use. That was the project. Then we basically decided in 2014 to start up our own company, me and my partner. We always wanted to do hundreds of things as a designer. Every day, the day seems short to do things. The kinds of projects we were interested in doing ranged from furniture to bags to vehicles to anything. So we literally did that. It was a struggle to get projects in the beginning, but then each project you do builds up your reputation and your skill. In the beginning, you will learn how to go about a project professionally. How do you handle a client? How do you handle a proposal? How does a designer ask for money? How do you set a price to your time? These are things which is not there in any book online. No one can teach this to you. You have to find your own balance of how to do that. You have to find your own value which you set as per your quality of work. Find a balance between working with people, a lot of people skills involved, and it trains you as a person as well. It really changed us as a person, the kind of patience you require, the kind of empathy you require to do a client project when it's all on you. That was interesting. And we did things ranging from modular furniture to keypads for the blind to heart monitors, electric vehicle chargers, medical devices, backpack panels, off-road vehicles, pacifiers, smart pacifiers actually, portable X-ray machines to cricket pads. So we basically had a blast. We could learn something about silicon in one project and apply it in the some parts of the other project. So cross learning was tremendous. Um, we still believe that it would be a challenge to learn the kind of things we learned uh, if we had not started up from a single company. That being said, you also need to find a balance between how deep you want to go in a particular field. If you are interested in a particular field and you join a firm, you get, if you spend enough time with that company or with the people you work with, you will learn a lot of things in that field, which is also good. Because we need specialists as well. We need generalists and we need specialists, and we need someone who knows about everything a little bit. We need people who know a lot about some things. It's always going to be a partnership. Even now, we still call ourselves, like me and my partner call ourselves as designers who have designed various kinds of products. We know a little bit about a lot of things, and we also do have our specialist projects. We know what we are good at. Like, for example, I personally am good at highly functional projects, highly mechanical projects, like medical devices, automotive seating. These are things I'm interested in as well as I'm good at. And also, you know that saying, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Just go for it. What's the worst that can happen? You can gain something. Speaking of something, we literally wanted to make something. We wanted to make our own product, and we wanted to make something to sit on, something to wear, something to eat with. And we took that name and we filtered out certain vowels, and we came up with something. That's how we chat, right? We write something. We don't have time to write the whole word, so we write something. And this was our product. And there's a short journey to the product wherein the design was the first step, to our surprise. and we call it the snug, something snug. These are the these are part of the things we had to learn. We had to do research. We had to think of budgets, the concept, the prototype. Who are we designing for? Why are we designing only this much? Why not better material? Why not better mechanisms? How do we do the photo shoot? How do we promote? How do we sell? And who manufactures? How do we do the legalities? Everything, logistics. I'm still audible, right? Okay, there's a lot of questions in the previous time. Some time back, someone asked about the loop structure. I will get into that. Yeah, let me just check if I'm audible. Yeah, great. So the basis for the we don't want to call it a bag. We call it the unbag. We actually call it something. How do you pack and carry? We went back to basics. How would caveman pack and carry? You uh, and the whole logic about potleys, right? You can basically wrap anything in a piece of paper, or you can wrap anything in a cloth. It becomes a potley. So we thought we'll talk about how you pack and how you carry separately, whether you're traveling or whether you're working. We went back to a sheet of paper. We also defined what kind of audiences would be relevant to us. Who does these things that we're talking about? Who packs and carries often? Who packs smart? Who actually cares about packing? There are people who just dump things in a duffel bag, right? So shopping habits, where do they shop? What is their budgets? How often do they shop? Who doesn't have a bag? Everybody has a bag. Why should they buy our bag? These are questions we ask. Who will make our product? How do we deliver? Then we also, you all know about Kickstarter and Fuel a Dream and Indiegogo. So this is a Bangalore-based company, and they do campaigns for projects. You can get public support and funding for your project based on an idea. After which, after a particular amount of set time, you go into manufacturing and you deliver. It's all on trust, and it's amazing. The feeling you get when people you don't know are supporting you is amazing. Yes. So we did a lot of mock-ups. We had a really amazing stitching guru who taught us a lot of things. We didn't know how to hide a stitch in a zip or the kind of inside out you have to do for hiding seams and all these things. We didn't know anything. We basically learned everything there is about back stitching in 2 months. That was amazing, which would have never happened if we didn't do this product. No one would have, approached us to do a bag because we had not done it before. So sometimes these kind of adventures work. We spent all our effort to come up with materials which no one had seen. We came up with sheets of Velcro, basically so that you can stick something anywhere you want. We came up with a concept of opening the bag in a particular way, carrying it in a particular way. And these are the 3 prototypes we made. And for the campaign, for the promotion, we decided to go all out. We had no budget. A very close friend of ours, he's a filmmaker, Bharat. He helped us come up with a very, funky video. We basically wanted to make a statement because information without a story is boring. And we thought we don't want to be boring. Our product is not a Swiss knife. But it is a Swiss knife of bags, is what we wanted to think. So we came up with the inspiration was the Ant-Man movie, where very famous filmmaker, there's a particular way a scene goes, and we wanted to adapt that, and we created a script, storyboarding. These were things which we never seen before. We just saw a little bit in college because they were different departments, and we saw how they work. But this is the first-hand experience for the first time. Frame by frame, we had to plan the amount of time we have for each dialogue, and amount of what will be shown in the screen exactly, the coloring, the sound, the music, everything. It was amazing. Deep down, I always wanted to do a movie. This was a dream come true. We found locations around the city and we shot the whole thing in 2 days, in fact, 1.5 days. All the actors were our friends and they were amazing sports. And we hired a professional photographer to do shoots of the product, stills and videos. And we did the best we could. We modeled ourselves. And that was the making of the story. The campaign was a success. In around 45 days, we had 925 funders. So we sold around more than 1,200 bags. and we raised 21 lakhs. So that was great amount of boost for us to go into production. And after that, of course, going with the manufacturing team, handling the factory, handling logistics, delivering, handling customer feedback, recording it with for the next product, how do you upgrade, all that. That was secondary. That was later. So I'd like to show you the video here. It will just take the campaign video is 2 minutes.
How much longer are you gonna take? Hey, what's that?
Huh? What, this? Well, there are these two low-lying guys, yeah, making these kick-ass bags who this guy Raj met on a business trip, and then Nikki happened to notice it, who later sold it to Ria because she went all wow about it. Donnie picked it up from her and told me, bro, you gotta get one of these. So I got one of these.
Joe, calm down. From the top again.
Right. So my man Donnie and I were getting a drink, yeah? A couple of drinks down, he was like, Joe, let's jam. And he pulls out this shiny shiz from this thing that looked like a bag. And I was like, whoa, Donnie, the hell is that? So he saw it on this really fine, ugly chick, Ria, and it felt like love at first sight. But it wasn't until she transformed that sling to a backpack that was the moment. Whoa, I definitely need one of those. Anyway, Ria found it strange how Nikki, this pilot, would always carry just this one bag around. You travel with just one bag? Because it seemed like a small bag to her. Babe, when you can pack and carry it the way you want it, it's all you'll ever need. She was actually referring to Raj, who showed her the bag at his office. And he'd apparently packed an entire business trip in there. And it still looked so snug. Which is why Raj couldn't resist it and got all, I need this. But the only way to get the bag is this.
Wait, what?
Support campaign. Get bag.
Simple.
That's it? You took me through all of that? For this? I want my snug.
So yeah, that basically was the campaign video. I hope the audio was there. Yeah, I'm just checking for some questions if there are any related to that. Okay, so I'm guessing the audio in the video was working. So we had to create an online store and online presence. So there are a lot of things which was required to create that. Brand language, payment gateway, how does the user interact with it, running cost, all these things. There's a flow of how a user arrives at the site, how will he explore the site, whether he explores or not, how will he explore different pages, how will he go to the bucket list and buy it, and then payment, and after that customer service, post purchase. These are things which we designed. We had to design workflows of the app. So we are now doing user experience designer. Mind you, we are both product designers and furniture designers, so we didn't know anything, but we learned. This was the final mobile website where we designed each part of the site very carefully. What is the color of the button? For example, if you have a red color shop now button, that's different from having a green color shop now button. These are things which we need to be sensitive about. So that was the basic gist of the process. I don't want to go too deep into that, but yeah, we also had to on the background analyze who is visiting our site, who is not visiting our site, why is it so, and what are the things, which pages are they spending more time on, which might mean either those pages are interesting or they are not understanding what is there. So these are things which designer has to keep on asking. It was a humbling experience overall. From idea to market, around 1.5 years, it was very grounding to know that it takes a lot for you to put a product out there, and tremendous respect for those who are doing it. And in fact, I welcome you to just create something and sell it. Ask someone, try and see if someone takes out the wallet for your product. There are a lot of Santyas which happen. Sell it in college, do something. Presently, I'm a senior industrial designer at an EV company. We make electric vehicles and also future solutions for e-mobility. Basically, I am designing the exteriors of the vehicle right now. I wish I could show you more, but I can't right now. The product is under the hood. So we'll release the vehicle very soon, next year. And my three favorite principles, since we are almost at 12:30, I'll just touch upon the three favorite principles which will apply across your career. The first one is a designer should be able to balance and should also internally be able to balance what between the want of the hour, basically what you want to do, what is the need of the hour, what is needed to be done. They are different. And also what is possible to be done. If you're working for yourself or your client, there are resources and things like that, time. In the middle is something which will ultimately be the end result. This is what works. If you want to create, let's say if you're an interior designer and you want to paint the walls orange, you love orange. But if your client wants blue and orange reminds him of something bad, then you have to compromise. You have to come up with a way. Maybe you suggest maroon. So you have to always balance between what is needed, what you want to do, and what is possible to be done. The next one is you should be able to zoom in and zoom out of any situation. If you are designing, let's say if you're designing a vehicle, if your role is to design the seat and you don't know about the servicing requirement or the other parts of the product which needs to be accessed or the kind of manufacturing limitations which are there, then in your small bubble, you will not be able to design successfully. It has nothing to do with your skill. So if you don't have the ability to go in and go out of a project, of any big, small or big project, the product will be not ideal. So don't miss the forest for the trees. Discuss with the people who are in the project and do the project at a system level. For example, if you're designing posters for an airport, you should also know how people are coming in and out of the airport. That's an example, basically. The last would be my favorite word for design is context. I call design contextual creativity. It's always within a context. Otherwise, it's not targeted at any problem or a person, which is also fair. It's fine in its own place. It's art. But when you have a context, you should respect that context and create something which is suitable in that concept. How do you design signage for an African village? The stop symbol that you know of may not be stop there. How do you design a pamphlet for the blind? So you need to know what the environment is that you're designing for. These are three things which I always follow. That's the end of my presentation, and I would like for anyone to basically ask me things. I'm looking through the Q&A. AID or Mr. Hanif, I'm done with my presentation. How do you want to go about this Q&A session? Okay, I'm getting some questions here. I'll basically answer one by one. So yeah, materials and inspiration for my plastic design. So basically, you get to understand materials based on your requirement. Like the seat, for example, you will be able to understand materials based on the functionality requirement of that particular product. For example, this had to take X amount of load, and this was the environment of functionality, and there are production limitations. So you have to consider production, strength, aesthetics together to come up with materials. And there are very standard options, like plastics have also different kinds of plastics available. Not harmful, some are cheap, some are expensive, some are strong, some can't be painted, some can be painted. So it always comes down to what you design as the specs of your product, and the products will automatically come out of that decision. Procedure to get into design school for the masters after doing BE. There are a lot of colleges with their own exams. There are a lot of colleges which have open applications. You basically will need to show some of your work. You need a portfolio for them to understand why is it that you want to do design. In any form, you have sketches or things you've done in life, things you have changed around you. You need to show that your design inclination, and that's about it. That's for, I'm talking from a postgraduate point of view. For undergraduation also, it's the same. For my college, we had a all India exam, after which there was a studio level exam. There were a few rounds, and there was the interview. Some questions about why loops are used, as it acts as pressure points. That's actually a good point. In fact, we decided which pressure points are good for you and which pressure points hurt you. This was the third iteration. There were other iterations which we did and failed. But yes, the basic reason for designing this loop was that is the backbone of the seat. It will support you structurally. Worst case scenario, we could always give a padding, like you see in this image. There's a foam around it. There's a very thin cushion lining around it. So the loop is just a structural member, and the design takes care of your body. Just asking. We did a project on bags. So this question from Manjunath. We did a project on bags with number of smart features for some competition. Make it functional and look good at the same time. It's a real great experience. We learned already. Exactly. So this perfect, Manjunath. Basically, you realize, right? You can, as a designer, you can come up with 1,000 features, and the budget also will go 1,000 times up. So you have to create a balance between who are you making it for, as I said, right? Why is it being made at that price? What can you procure in terms of material? What can you design in terms of your skill set? All these things combine to make the ideal product. Basically, if you have a bouquet of flowers and you don't have the budgets to showcase it anywhere, there's no end to that product, right? You have to think of everything. Yeah, how to start with skills. I personally use YouTube before design school, and even after finishing graduation, post graduation, I did certain courses on automotive design, and how do you design, how do you sketch for mechanical components is very different from how you sketch for interiors, and different domains or different fields will have different sketching requirements. People need to visualize things differently. My current position in my job is I am talking to engineers every day. I have to sketch out details of how a screw is going through a plastic. So I don't need to show them aesthetics at any point of time. Whereas my deck, which I'll create for the CEO, will have to be aesthetic. So you have to change your sketching and presentation based on requirement. There are thousands of courses online, and your colleges also teach you everything that's needed, starting from basic technical drawing, like how do you draw in perspective, how do you draw in section or different isometric views, side views, how do you draw for scale. All these things are all covered. Someone asked me, why did I switch to a job from my own company? So this was a decision me and my partner took mutually, and we felt that there's a huge calling for us to learn a lot more in terms of human behavioral science, strategic management, the business of management, execution. These are larger things which you need to learn from experienced teams. We are now lucky to work with people we would have never met as a client, but they are our teammates. We felt that we had done a good amount of work and various kinds of projects for the last 5 years, and there was a time to learn more. As designers, you'll create all your life. It doesn't need to be as a startup, or there's no rule. It's basically we focused on where do we learn the most and where can we do exciting work. Right now, the learning opportunity and the work both are exciting, so we decided to learn things we didn't know yet. My partner, for example, is going into strategy and research and behavioral sciences and psychology, and I'm going deeper into engineering and production and production management and data. All these things are going to add different layers to what we already know. That was a conscious call, and the future is still open, right? Someone asked me, I'm a marine engineer. I'm interested in naval architecture. Would you suggest whether I should study PG or just get strong in software required and design school? Um, I'll try to say if I understood it correctly. Basically, are you asking if you want to go deeper into marine engineering and learn software to do it? Or, yeah, so basically, so Monappa, you could either go deeper into your field and become a master at it, and you will obviously come to know what softwares are required to support what kind of job. For example, in automotive design, we have CAD engineers who design the exterior. We have separate engineers who design mechanisms. We have another set of engineers who design the final tools which manufacture. Everything is important. You need to know, you need to decide whether you want to be at a broader scale designer or an engineer at a broader level, like someone who is coordinating things, or someone who is the master in that field. Both are equally important and fine. Which design school would you recommend? That's a loaded question. Basically, there are, to be really honest, there are different schools in India which are all really good at certain things. When in 2011, for me, NID was relevant because I was looking specifically for furniture design, and it suited me. And I have met a lot of people from a lot of schools and colleges. We have had interns from those schools and colleges. They are all excellent. It actually comes down to what you have as a drive. The college will teach you, at least for me, the college taught me how to think like a designer, how to attack a question, how to attack a problem. After that, the level of skill you acquire is on you. You have to also come halfway and learn different things. It will not be handed to you in a platter. You have to be curious enough to go and talk to students of other departments. So, for example, I saw the requirement of furniture design in small animation sets which my friends were designing. They were doing claymation animation. So I think I could contribute towards their set design. In fact, some of our super seniors and faculties entered as furniture designers. Now they are making movies or working in craft. So it is all going to change. You just keep your mind open and always be curious. There is formal training, which is limited, beyond which you have to also ask yourself what you want. Just in the Q&A panel, what is your research process? So basically, my research process is always about asking why about a billion times till you find the most broadest, indivisible why. If you're designing a bag, why do you want to design a bag? Is it because you're trying to solve a particular problem, or is it because you're trying to give a new kind of entertainment to people? Who is it for? Why should someone stop using their own bag and go for your bag? Are you trying to solve a problem in packing or carrying? And then you go deeper. Let's say you choose packing. In packing, what is the kind of problems you want to solve within packing? Are you not packing enough, or is your organization in the bag a problem? If that is solved, then you go deeper into asking, why is this kind of partition okay? Do we need partitions at all? So there's a why for a why, and you go deeper and deeper. I do a lot of online research. I do a lot of physical research. I go out there and look at other products. I use them for some time. This is if the products are out there. If you're designing a system which is of a future which is not there at all, that your solution will be the new future, then it's more challenging. At that point of time, you need to really look at the key features of the current situation, the current solution, and find problems with the current solution, as well as find the good things about the current solution. So when you do a pro and con analysis, you come to know what are the gaps you can bridge. What are some tips for doing design professionally in India? So I don't know if I've understood it correctly, but is it that you're talking about your own practice? It's the same. You basically come up with your own portfolio. In the beginning, you will have to choose projects. You have to find projects and find works through your colleagues or seniors. approach companies, approach startups, go with your portfolio, do background research of that company, find out what they are struggling with, propose a glimpse of a solution or the kind of solutions you can do for them, build trust, build your build your credibility that you can do something for them, and then you go into contracts and projects, proposals, and timelines. I'll just go to the chat bar once. Yes, I think I've covered more or less all the questions. Anything else from our attendees here? I'm keeping the presentation on this slide because I really want you guys to make something. Oh, very good question. How is design different in the COVID situation? We are literally spending the last 3 months designing for post-COVID, starting from the way our office is operating. All of a sudden, till December, January, everything was fine. And in a month, the whole world turned, and we were designing the process of working from home. That's why we were ready. Our company had no issues transitioning from work from office into work from. We asked everyone who has internet at home. We asked everyone who had power at home, what kind of software access do we need? So starting from, to answer your question, starting from a systems point of view, you need to enable work in the first place. You need to really consider what are the things which people care about today. I'm pretty sure many people have not visited an e-commerce clothing website in the last few days compared to what they would do usually. Small things like going out to have a coffee with a friend has become important. How do you party in the future? How do you move around in the future? Will people start using their own vehicles more instead of using public transport? Which means, what does it mean for public transport? Since half of the seats are useless in the airplanes now. So everything is fresh. We are in the beginning of a wave, and this is a huge opportunity for designers to come up with different ways of communication, clarity, and how you pass on the right information to people. Otherwise, there will be panic. And how you design for sustainability, how you design for mass manufacturing, how do you design for hygiene. If you are designing, let's say, hand dispenser, soap dispenser, or hand sanitizer, how do you design for minimal contact? There are 3-4 actions you have to do till you actually access the sanitizer. You have to touch the bottle, you have to open the lid, you have to close the lid, and keep the hand sanitizer somewhere. How do you design for minimal contact? So I'm also talking to certain people in the medical field. They were designing gowns, PPEs, protection gear for surgeons with minimal contact and minimal time of wearing. So the whole world is now aware of things they didn't think about. Things they took for granted are not anymore. You need to improve the manufacturing, you need to improve sustainability. And it's a great place to be for designers. We are really needed today for improving things around us. Start by identifying things in your own house. Try to find 10 things you can improve in your own house. What is the cloth you're using to clean? What is happening to the cloth? How are you touching the doorknobs? It will make you feel what doorknobs are good. Are doorknobs that you can open with your elbow better than doorknobs which are round? These are questions we don't ask ourselves usually unless we are faced with a problem, right? So necessity is the mother of innovation. We are now in that situation. Thank you all. Thank you, AID. Thank you all panelists. Thank you all who joined. And great questions from your side. And good luck for the future ahead. Thank you.